Well, it was election day in much of the country, particularly and especially here in California. By the way, you can always call at 888-971 SAGE, 888-971 SAGE. And don't forget, after 20 minutes after the hour, you got to switch over to Epoch Times TV in order to continue watching the live show. Epoch Times TV, switch over after around 20 minutes to watch the show live. Now, big race here in LA for mayor. It pitted a multi-billionaire. His name is Rick Caruso against Karen Bass. Karen Bass, the longtime Democrat, state lawmaker, city lawmaker, member of House right now, been around 30, 40 years. So all the problems that we're talking about, crime, homelessness, bad schools, she hasn't been able to solve. And Rick Caruso's been in the private sector, made a boatload of money. As I think I mentioned the other day, you got to like a guy who makes so much money. He refers to his $100 million yacht that costs more than his home as my boat. Now, Karen Bass was going BMW. For those of you who've never heard my show before, BMW stands for bitch, moan, whine. Going BMW over all the money that Rick Caruso spent. He outspent her by a factor of almost 10 to 1. Oh my goodness. Cue the laughter. Outspent me. He's outspent me 10 to 1. By what factor was I outspent when I ran for governor? 5 to 1, 6 to 1, 7 to 1. Nobody gave a rip. But now this guy outspends a Democrat. Oh my God, there's just way too much money in politics. Now, there is a controller race. What's that? I think it's something to do with managing the state's finances. Nobody even knows what a controller does. Nobody could tell you who the current controller is, but there is a race. And the guy that has been endorsed by the LA Times, endorsed Lan He-Chen, Republican. Why? Well, according to the editorial in the LA Times, Lan He-Chen is an independent Republican, i.e., he believes that Donald Trump lost 2020 and there wasn't any shenanigans, it wasn't stolen. That's why the LA Times is supporting the guy. Can you imagine if he said what I said, which is there were all sorts of shenanigans. The Hunter Biden story was suppressed. The $419.5 million spent by Zuckerbucks. The 2.5-year collusion race, shenanigans in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Wisconsin. If he had said that, they would have called him another Trump Republican and they wouldn't have supported him. So the only reason the LA Times is supporting this guy is because he's really, really smart. He's a member of the Hoover Institute up in Stanford. And of course, he is an independent, i.e., he believes Donald Trump lost. But more interesting is the race between the embattled DA Chesa Boudin and the voters who want him recalled. And he was recalled. Over 60% of the voters in San Francisco recalled this guy, San Francisco County. This is a county that's 85% Democrat, and the city itself, only 6% are registered Republicans. So a bunch of left-wing people throughout this progressive DA. And when he lost, here is who he blamed.
They're angry. They're frustrated. And I want to be very clear about what happened tonight. The right-wing billionaires outspent us 3 to 1. They exploited an environment in which people are appropriately upset. And they created an electoral dynamic where we were literally shadow boxing. Voters were not asked to choose between criminal justice reform and something else. They were given an opportunity to voice their frustration and their outrage, and they took that opportunity.
Right-wing billionaires, they outspent me by a big factor. Oh my God, can you cue the laughter again, please? All these billionaires, you know, when I ran for governor, Reed Hastings, co-CEO of Netflix, $3 million to keep Gavin Newsom in office. The SEIU union, Service Employees International Union, $2 million to make sure this guy stayed in office. But poor Chesa Boudin, he's been ousted by these right-wing billionaires. The voters are not right-wing, they're left-wing. They thought you were even too progressive for them. Now, Mr. Boudin has quite a pedigree. His parents were Kathy Boudin and David Gilbert. You know who they were? They were members of the Weather Underground, a terrorist organization. By the way, they were white, which made them white terrorists. Isn't that the number one threat here in America? So this guy is a son of white terrorists, and the people of the city by the bay and the county by the bay made him their DA. When he was 14 months old, his parents were arrested, convicted of murder for their role as drivers in the Brinks robbery of 1981 in Rockland County, New York. Mom sentenced to 20 years to life, father 75 years to life for their felony murders of 2 cops and a security guard. Can you believe this? 2 cops and a security guard. I'm going to get back to Mr. Boudin's pedigree in just a second. But first, you know, fear of out of control inflation hammering the stock market. The S&P 500 is having its worst start to the year since World War II. So not only are your savings worth less, you now have less of it. So now it might be a good time for you to diversify into gold, the most stable asset in the history of the world. And Birch Gold is the company I trust to help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold and silver. That's right. Not only will Birch Gold help you fortify your savings with precious metals, they'll help you do it in a tax-sheltered account. So go to larryforgold.com and get your free 0 obligation info kit on holding gold in a tax-sheltered account. Amazon stock down 37% in the first half of the year. Tesla down 40%. Cryptos have been slammed. And many fear the hawkish moves by the Fed to hike up interest rates could stall the economy. So what's your plan? Well, go to larryforgold.com and get your free no obligation info kit on gold from Birch Gold. They are the precious metals professionals. I trust them enough to buy from them. So go to larryforgold.com and secure your savings right now. Back to Mr. Boudin's background. Now, after his parents were put in jail, Boudin was raised in Chicago by his adoptive parents, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, who, like his parents, have been members of the Weather Underground, and they too were on the lam. I'll talk about that in just a second. Now, he comes from a long line of left-wingers. His great-granduncle, Louis B. Boudin, was a Marxist theoretician and author of a 2-volume history on the Supreme Court's influence on American government. Grandfather Leonard Boudin represented a bunch of controversial clients, including but not limited to Fidel Castro. Hey, everybody deserves counsel. Before law school, Boudin traveled to Venezuela, where he served as a translator in the Venezuelan presidential palace during the administration of Hugo Chavez. He wrote some books, translated the Bolivarian Revolution into English, translated Hugo Chavez Speaks into English. So when you're talking about San Francisco, that makes Mr. Chesa Boudin a moderate. Memo to your parents, never name your son Chesa. He campaigned for decarceration, eliminating cash bail, refusing to assist ICE with raids and arrests. This is what he campaigned on, and they voted for him. Now, as mentioned, Bill Ayers of the Weather Underground raised him. Now, on September 11, 2001, that's right, on 9/11, on the morning of 9/11, there was an article all about Mr. Bill Ayers in the New York Times. Headline, "No Regrets for a Love of Explosives." We're going to talk about Mr. Bill Ayers, the man who raised Chesa Boudin, later on in the program. And by the way, Ayers and I had an interview. Some called it an explosive interview, in which I kind of gave my thoughts on what I thought about Mr. Ayers and his attempt to blow up Capitol building, Pentagon, and a police station. I'll have that for you in just a second. When we come back, we're going to talk to the man who led the movement to recall Chesa Boudin. Don't go away. Richie Greenberg, longtime City by the Bay resident, political commentator, former candidate for mayor. Also, more importantly, founder of the movement to recall San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boudin. Richie, thank you so much for joining me. Richie, ding dong, the witch is dead. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
All right, now, Richie, you heard what he said. He went BMW. For those who've never heard my show before, that stands for Bitch, Moan, and Wine. He went BMW about the right-wing billionaires. Richie, am I looking at a right-wing billionaire?
Absolutely not. You know, I think the total tally as of last night so far, because they keep adding to it each day, the Department of Elections, I think it's like 80,000 people have voted to recall him. So that's an awful lot of right-wing billionaire, Republican billionaires here in the city, wouldn't it be? You know.
What are we talking about in your county? 85% registered Democrat.
Yeah, we have 800,000 residents. We have just shy of 500,000 registered voters and 320,000 registered Democrats. So you have 320 out of 500.
So you can count Republicans on two hands.
So
these were left-wing voters who got rid of this guy who was too left-wing for the left-wing voters.
Yeah. If you have the spectrum of left, center, and right, this guy, Boudin, I don't even want to refer to him as DA Boudin anymore. So Boudin is like way off the scale. He's like fell off the flat earth. I mean, he's just completely gone. All
right. Richie, as this recall movement was going on, it was pretty clear that he was becoming increasingly less popular. Did he make any mid-course corrections? Did he apologize? Did he backtrack on anything?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because one would think that if you see that you're unpopular, you look at what your policies are that might be causing the most strife, right? And then even if you weren't entirely sincere, you would say at least you're going to try and make some adjustments. Like even down in LA, Gascon said he's going to be reevaluating his policies.
Oh, but he's watched what's happened in the Bay Area. Yeah. Believe me. By the time November rolls around, he's going to sound like Donald Trump.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Chesa Boudin has not once apologized. He has not once shown any remorse. He has not said, well, maybe I made an error or I need to adjust my thinking. Zero. He stood like a wall. Whatever it is, that is my policy. This is it. And people love me. And if you don't agree, then you're a right wing, you're a racist, a fascist, homophobe, all the whole string of descriptive words there. So that's his attitude. And even last night in his sort of acknowledgement of defeat speech last night, he was still fiery. He was still blaming everything on the rich billionaire right-wing Republicans.
Well, but he didn't, Rich. He didn't blame Putin. So let's give him that. Not
yet.
Here's my question: was there some sort of tipping point? Was there some particular case that really shot this thing off?
Yeah, of course. He was elected in November 2019. Right. January 2020 is when he took the keys at the helm of the DA's office, and for a whole year, so from January all the way to December of 2020, he was making these really bad policy decisions. He was letting convicted people out. He was not rearresting felons who were out on parole and violating the parole. And December 31st, 2021, there was one of these parolees that was drunk in a stolen car with a handgun and drugs. This guy named Troy McAllister, he crashed and lost control of his car and hit two women standing on the sidewalk, innocent women, Hanako Abe and Elizabeth Platt. These are two martyrs in a sense. And they died, and we were outraged, and that was the impetus. That was the trigger that launched then the recall effort.
What position did the Chronicle take
on recall?
Yeah.
Of basically every local media, newspaper, and TV, and all the journalists, they all were pro-Chesa, meaning they were anti-recall, except for one, the Marina Times, which is up in the northern part of the city. That was very disturbing, that all of the media were all on Chesa's side.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, though, Richie, because Proposition 47 was backed here by the LA Times, by the Chronicle, 57 backed by the LA Times, by the Chronicle. And as you know, 57 allows a whole bunch of categories of crime to be called non-violent offenses. The reason that's relevant is because Boudin, as the case with Gascon, is pushing cashless bail for non-violent offenders. So if you are somebody who's been accused of serial arson, you are now non-violent, eligible for cashless bail. Assault on a police officer, non-violent, eligible for cashless bail. Rape of an intoxicated victim, eligible for cashless bail. Felony domestic violence, eligible for cashless bail. So all these newspapers supported this stuff. How they're now going to turn around and drop kick Chesa Boudin when he supported the same stuff they supported?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's what is the quandary. We've got this problem now, and they shouldn't have been so quick to dismiss the recall as well, because you just look back a couple of months ago, we had 3 of the 7 school board commissioners, the members of the school board, were also these vile, racist, unbelievable, and yet the media came out against them. They endorsed a recall, a yes position on their recall. And so did the majority of the city council or board of supervisors and the mayor. They all came out and denounced these 3 members, and they were avalanche of recall. So they can do this if they really wanted to. They could endorse one.
Rich, we have about a minute and a half left. When I ran for governor, the recall was denounced by the LA Times as undemocratic. Why? Because the successor were Newsom to have been recalled would have been chosen by a minority of voters. Maybe 25% or so is what I got out of the total number of casts. That was deemed to be undemocratic. In the case of the 3 school board members you mentioned who were recalled, the mayor chooses the successor. The people have nothing whatever to do with it. And by the way, the mayor chose one of the 3 that was recalled. So my question to you regarding Mr. Boudin is the mayor will choose his successor until the term is up. She did not support him when he ran. She supported somebody else. So what is London Breed going to do?
Actually, she's going to be appointing a temporary replacement only until November. Right. Then we have a short-term election, and that is the Democratic election, right? So she actually signaled a couple of months ago when we had a vacancy in the city council, she appointed a replacement for that person who moved on to Sacramento, Matt Haney, someone who was very qualified to be the city council member. He was a former spokesperson for the SFPD, the police department. So that right there, in my opinion, is going to be sending a signal that we're going to get back to some prosecution now.
Well, Richie, thank you so much for coming on. Again, good job. Go, Richie. Go, Richie. Go, Richie. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, don't forget, switch over to epochtv.com to continue watching the show live. That's epochtv.com to keep watching the show live. I will be right back, and we will finish up on the pedigree of Mr. Bill Ayers, the man who helped raise Chesa Boudin. Don't go away. People have been asking me, what have you been doing with your life since the election? Well, the truth is I've been enjoying life, riding my bike around town.
Oh, they're not wearing a mask.
I've taken up a little bit of fishing as well.
Elder kills innocent fish.
And I've been posting on social media. Oh, come on. Listen. If you're tired of the censorship as I am, I've actually got some great news for you. Check out epochtv.com. It's a brand new censorship-free video platform where you'll find not only my show, but other deep documentaries, great content, and honest movies that bring you the news without all the spin and the false narratives. So check out epochtv.com.